All right, everyone, good evening. This is Mr. Gruber. Thanks for tuning in to the first attempt at this live stream stuff to review for you guys' upcoming RQA. I did want to give a little bit of a clarification. This is the website that you need to go to in order to submit questions. Okay, so if you're interested in putting a question up in live time, feel free to go to this website. Okay. Otherwise, you can just feel free to sit back and go through a couple of different problems with me. Okay. So I'm going to give people about another minute or so to see if they can join us. Hopefully you can hear me well. Feel free to also post that in the Q&A website. Let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay. And again, we're just going to wait here for a couple seconds and see if anything shows up. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and start going over a couple questions that are pretty similar to the review packet that you guys got, but just a couple extra questions that I thought might be a good idea to look at. Okay, so it looks like we got about 6 viewers, so 7 viewers, there we go. Okay, so yeah, hopefully this is beneficial to you guys. Again, if you want to actually post specific questions you have, even if it's not maybe a specific question that was on the RQA, but maybe it's something related to that or just a skill or topic you want to cover, again, you can go to this website right here, and I'll try my best to answer any questions that you guys come up with in a timely fashion. Okay. So I'm just going to give just a couple more seconds just to see if any questions start to pop up. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and start off with a couple extra practice problems. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. There aren't any specific questions that have come up yet. Again, if time goes by and you see something that you want to go over, feel free to post something. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and look at a couple problems that we have. So the first type of question I'm going to go over is similar to the one that you guys saw in the RQA review guide. And that is related to this conversion between polar and Cartesian form. So I believe the one that I gave you guys on your practice review guide involves a cosecant. So just to change things up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and change the equation around a little bit, and let's make it a -4 secant of theta. Okay. So for this type of question, again, remember that they're going to ask probably something along the lines of convert from polar to Cartesian. Okay, and I'll just hyphenate Cartesian there. So, or shorten it. So when we're doing this, again, you want to make sure that you're familiar with the kind of the 3 basic equations that we use when we do this type of conversion. So one of them being x squared plus y squared equals r squared. The next one being x equals r cosine of theta, which is easy to remember because we always talk about how cosine has to do with the x values, right? And then on the flip side of that, we have y equals r sine of theta, okay? So in this case, because I have a cosecant, or excuse me, a secant here, I'm trying to get it to look something like one of these so that I can start the conversion and get rid of all these r's and thetas and start to see some x's and y's. So similar to the review guide, the first thing I'm going to do, sorry if that was a little staticky. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually write everything in terms of cosine. So remember that secant is 1 over sine. So if I have -4 secant, that's the same thing as -4 over cosine. And then I'm going to multiply by cosine. And the reason that I do that is because then I recognize that I have this here, which is showing up down here, right? So I can make this substitution of r cosine is equal to x. Okay, so in the end, I'll have r cosine of theta, and let's just go ahead and write it out. So r cosine of theta, the order doesn't matter. I can put the r out front, equals -4. And then I can go ahead and make a substitution here where this is just x. So x equals -4. So if I were to actually graph this on a coordinate plane, which is also something they could ask for, just thinking back to your basic graphs, if you have the equation of x equals -4, well, that's the line where everything is equal to -4 no matter what the y value, right? So in this case, I have a vertical line at -4, right? That's the line x equals -4. On the flip side of that, if I had y equals, which is similar to the one that is in your review guide, I would have a horizontal line. Okay, so that's another conversion problem again. That's from polar to Cartesian, right? So going from r's and thetas to x's and y's. Okay, so let me just check our question board and see if anybody's had any questions that they've posted. And okay, can you change the RQA date? Anonymous, okay. Unfortunately, we can't. So we're trying to get all the tests in, especially before the seniors go. And so Mr. Seitler and I discussed and talked about it with some of the other people in the math department, and we decided this was the best date. So I'm sorry to the anonymous poster that asked if we can change the RQA date. So. All right. So Ileona, you said you're freezing for me. So remember when you guys are watching this, make sure that you are sort of like at the end of the video. That I know that doesn't really make sense when I say it out loud. So treat it as if you're watching a video and you scrolled the little button at the very bottom all the way to the right, as if you want to just watch like the last 2 seconds of the video. Because if you pause it, it will pause on your end, even though I'm still going on my end. So you can try and do that. Otherwise, it might just be an internet connection. So I'm gonna just give everybody a couple seconds just in case somebody wants to post a question. I also wanted to point out this Q&A kind of session thing here is pretty nice, because as you saw with the first poster, if you're if you're uncomfortable letting everybody know who you are or what kind of question you want to ask, feel free to do it anonymously. That's fine too. Okay, I want to make sure you guys are in a comfortable setting, so feel free to do that. Okay. All right, well, if there's no other questions besides changing the RQA date, I'm going to go ahead and do a question that's similar to number 2 on your review guide. Okay. All right, so number 2 was kind of an interesting problem. It was asking you to graph a polar graph, and I believe the one I gave you guys in your review guide was a cardioid. So just for some extra practices, let's do a rose curve. So let's do 3 cosine of 2 theta. Okay, so remember that this is a rose curve, and it has in particular 4 petals. So just as a review with that, you take the number that's next to theta, and if it's even, you double it. That's your number of petals. If this was an odd number, like 3, 5, 7, those would be the number of petals. So if this was a 3, there would be 3 petals. If this was a 5, there'd be 5 petals, and so on. Okay. The only number this can't be is 1. If this is a 1, this entire thing now gives me a circle. Okay. So remember that if this number is anything other than 1, you get a rose curve. Otherwise, if this number is 1, you have a circle. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and start to graph this. And it looks like other people are saying that their videos are freezing. Let me check the... Yeah, on my end it looks okay. So let's just give it another second. Okay. So yeah, that's unfortunate if it's freezing. Hopefully you guys can at least sort of still follow along. So I'm going to go ahead and move on with this question that I have here. And if we continue to have issues, again, remember that you guys can always go back and fill out, or I'm sorry, not fill out, but watch the video back on my YouTube page if you are having some internet connection issues. Okay. So yeah, with this question here, I'm going to go ahead and graph it with our usual R and theta table. And so the one thing I need to know for this is what is the period, right? So the period for this one is going to be 2 pi over the absolute value of b. B in this case is 2. 2 is already positive. So the period is pi, right? So I'm actually just going to go ahead and put that at the end of my table here. Okay. Half of pi is pi over 2. You guys know the drill for this. Half of pi over 2 is pi over 4. And then in between here, we have 3 pi over 4. Okay. And so when we do this, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys at least one of these, how you would plug it in. So if I plug in to theta pi over 4, right, I'm going to have, just as an example, at least for one of these, 3 cosine of 2 times pi over 4, which is 3 cosine of pi over 2. And we know that cosine of pi over 2 is 0, right? So I plugged in pi over 4 and I got out 0, okay? So that is going to be one of the points that I use on my graph, okay? Looks like a lot of people are saying that it keeps loading. I appreciate you guys' patience on the first time that we do this. So let's do this. I'm going to stop broadcasting and then I'll reboot it and let's see if that helps. So I'll be right back with you guys.